Hi, I'm Celine Perkins from Perkins Dry Goods. Welcome to part 4 of the Barn Stars Sew Along. Today we're going to be working on the Sawtooth Star, and the Sawtooth Star is a 2-color block in this quilt, and I'm working with a medium blue in the background fabric. We're going to start with Unit A. Unit A is a simple half-square triangle. You'll take your Unit A squares, a background square and a dark square, place them right sides together. You'll have a drawn line diagonal from corner to corner. You'll stitch a scant 1/4 inch seam on either side of the line, and then you'll cut it apart, and that will give you 2 half-square triangle units. This unit does need to be cut down, trimmed to size. I'll be using the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. This is by New Leaf Designs, and there's information in the below the video for you to, if you're interested in ordering it. With the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, you'll align the horizontal line for the size you're trimming to on the stitching line. Then you'll trim, and the neat thing about this is you can trim your dog ears by putting your rotary cutter right in the slots, and that will give you a perfectly trimmed 2-size half-square triangle unit. You press these units to the dark fabric, and a reminder for myself when I'm doing this is I place the fabric that I want to press toward up on the ironing board. So that way I can set my seam and then just flip the unit back, give it a little finger press, and then hit it with the iron. That is Unit A. You need to make 4 for each block. There are 2 blocks in the quilt, so make a total of 8. The next step is Unit B, which is a simple flying geese unit. You will take your the fabric squares, the rectangles that you've marked Unit B. There's a rectangle and there are dark squares. You place the dark square on one end of the rectangle. Make sure your raw edges are aligned. You'll have a diagonal line drawn from corner to corner. You're going to stitch on this line. I like to stitch just a thread toward the outside corner, because when I flip this back, it will line up because it goes around the thread. So now you want to check and make sure that your edges will be aligned and that everything's even. Then you trim to a 1/4 inch. You're going to press the unit toward the corner, which gives you this. Now there are 4 of these in each block, so you'll be working on 8 because there's 2 blocks in the quilt. Now that this unit is pressed, the next step is to take another dark square that you've drawn a diagonal line on, place it so the line is pointing towards the center, stitch just next to the line, check to make sure everything lines up, trim to a 1/4 inch, press to the dark, and you'll have an overlap here at the top. That's to accommodate your seam allowance when you sew this unit to the one next to it. So this is Unit B, and as I said, you'll need to make 4 of these for each block, a total of 8 because there are 2 blocks. The next step is Unit C. Unit C is the pinwheel on point in the center of the block. Starting with a light background square and a dark square, place them right sides together, draw your line corner to corner, stitch a scant 1/4 inch from either side of the line, and cut the unit apart on the drawn line. That will give you 2 half-square triangle units. You need 4 for this pinwheel. This is an oversized block, so I'm going to use my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer to trim to size. And again, you line up the horizontal line on the stitching line, trim sides, use the slots to trim the dog ears. And you have a perfectly trimmed half square triangle unit. You're going to press the unit to the dark. So, as I said before, I place these units dark side up because that's the fabric I'm pressing toward. Press the seam, flip it back. I like to do a little finger press and then press it with the iron. You take the half square triangle units and you place the dark fabric. The one is going up and to the right, the next one is going down and to the right, and you place these right sides together, stitch on this line. I like to put a pin on the side that I need to stitch so I don't get them turned around between the cutting table and the sewing machine. The units are identical. Flip the bottom one to create your pinwheel. Place these right sides together. I will take a pin and put it in at the base where the stitching over crosses. Have it come out on the other side. Make sure the raw edges are aligned and that the pin is straight. And before I take the pin out, I take a second pin and I secure it so that I don't disturb where this pin is, because if I flip this down, that pushes the top unit up and the bottom unit down, and then my points don't match. Take this to the sewing machine. You'll stitch, taking care to save your point. Pinwheel is together. Points look pretty good. They don't always match up perfect. You'll be pressing this unit to one side, but I want to show you a trick with pressing. If you'll notice, the seams for the two units you stitch together, one goes one way to the right, this one goes to the left. These seams both go up. If you want to spin this seam to flatten out the center of this pinwheel, you just follow the guide by going to the right, and then you're going to flip this down. This is going to the left, and then this one goes up. So you see how these are rotating in the same direction? Then you'll press this one down, and if you'll notice, you can see this, you have a tiny little pinwheel in the center. This will flatten out the middle of your pinwheel. It's a totally optional step. If you want to try it, this is a fun block to do that on. Next step is to add the corners that will allow your pinwheel to be on point. There is a larger square that you'll need to cut diagonally from corner to corner. So that will give you 4 squares, or I'm sorry, 4 triangles that you'll be adding to this pinwheel. First step with that is to add the triangles to the opposite sides of the pinwheel. This is the easiest way to get this centered, is to line up the point of the triangle with the seam line and then get it straight so that your raw edges are aligned. I stick a pin in the top, pin in the bottom, stitch across. Repeat on this side. Align your raw edges. The point will be on the seam line, and that will give you a unit like this. So you've got these dog ears. You can trim these if you like at this point, or you can wait until you add the next step. And the next step is to take the triangles, line up the center point of the triangle with the seam, stitch, repeat with the second triangle, stitch. Then you definitely will want to trim these dog ears because they add bulk before you sew them into the block. That gives us a unit that looks like this that will be placed in the block like that. So your pinwheel will be on point. This is a block that you need to trim down to size. The pinwheel floats inside the block. There's about 1/4 of an inch from the pinwheel corners and the seam, and that's intentional. Now we'll assemble the block. Row 1 is a flying geese unit and 2 half square triangles. When you stitch these together, make sure that your dark triangles are on the outside corner. Row 2 is 2 flying geese with the center pinwheel. When you stitch this, your goal is to have these points not get cut off. Row 3 is 2 half square triangles and a flying goose unit. Again, you want to make sure that the dark triangles are on the outside corners. Stitch these together. I prefer to stitch with flying goose on top so I can make sure that I don't cut those points off. Pressing to the outside of the block, so you can see here. You'll press out towards the geese in the middle. The row 1 and row 2 are pressed toward the center. That allows your seams to intersect here, which makes them easier to match. I've spun this pinwheel so you can see that I have the little flat pinwheel in the center. Thank you for watching part 4, the Sawtooth Star and the Barn Star Sew Along.